Alright, so let's take a look at adding a few text stamps to our pre-batch output using a layout file. So the first thing I want to do, let's go ahead and bring up our output. So we'll just come down to View, whoops, if I can select it, View, and then View Pre-Batch Output. So here we have our output, and remember that we have this 1-inch white border, white space all the way around. So what I want to do, I'm going to add some text to this lower portion of the bleed down here, or the lower portion of this white space. And ultimately, I think I want to put a barcode somewhere in the middle, and then over on the right, I'm going to put an image. But right now, we're just going to focus on the text portion of this. So again, I want the text stamp to be over here, kind of in the lower left portion of this output, and probably more in a line with the edge right here, so that the text that I'm going to put down here isn't going to get cut off initially if this happens to be the first side that's cut. So to do that, we are going to come back to the UI. We'll come down to our configuration browser, and we're going to go to our layout that's underneath of the text component within our pre-batch component. So this layout right here, this is the same one that we've been working with previously, where we updated the box information in some of the earlier videos. So we'll come down here, open this in Notepad++, and we need to add a new section to our layout. So you can see right here we have a stamp section, and in the stamp section we've already included press marks, which are commented out, but these were the box outlines where we were able to set a color to the different boxes. So what we want to do is come up here under stamps, and we're going to make a new type of stamp called text stamps. Now within text stamps, we're going to add a new text, or a new text element. So to save a little bit of time, I'm just going to go ahead and paste in the text element, and we're going to walk through and also talk through each of these different attributes, but I wanted to get it in here so you can kind of see it, and then we'll work with this as we go through. So the very first attribute that you see within a text element is the format string. Format string is basically the text that's going to be displayed in the output. Now right here I have two things that's showing up. I have just some static text that I typed in for Infinity Digital, and then I also have a variable that I've included called order ID. So this is going to stamp down the actual order ID for the pre-batch output, or for the order that is being generated during that pre-batch portion of the workflow. Now, one question that most people ask is, how do I know what attributes or what attributes are available? And the way that we can find that out is if you come back to the UI, and for example on this particular order, we'll right click, come down to View, and then select the option that says View Order Attributes. Now this is going to open up a web page that shows every single attribute that is associated with this particular order. Now any of these things over on the left you can use for the text stamps that you want to put in. Now there are some caveats to this dependent upon the order structure, and we'll get into those a little bit later, but for the most part you can grab anything here and display that. So we'll go ahead and close the web browser for now. We'll come back to our pre-batch definition, and let's continue on through the rest of these attributes. So the next one, pretty straightforward, is font, and that allows you to define the font that you want to use for the text stamp. The next two attributes are the X and Y position, which basically denotes the starting point for where that text stamp is going to begin. Next we have rotation, which specifies whether the text is going to be rotated or not. In this case we're not going to rotate it, we're going to leave it at 0. And then we have font size, which right now is set to 16, and I think I'm going to drop that down a little bit. Let's go ahead and change that to 12. Next we have positioning, and in this case we're going to leave it relative. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. The side that we're going to have this text stamp be relative to is going to be the left side of the box. The color we'll just do black. And this box here, notice it's called Stamps Bottom. Now, I haven't built that yet, but I wanted to put it in here as a placeholder, and I'll show you what we're going to do with that here in just a little bit. We have an attribute for auto center if we want this text stamp to be centered either horizontally or vertically within the box that it is relative to, but in this case we're not going to do that, so we'll leave that as false. And then we have a whole series of knockout attributes. Now the knockout attributes allow you basically just to put some type of color behind the text that'll allow black text to be seen on a black background. For example, you could put a white knockout behind it. So we'll go over these attributes in a little more detail here in just a little bit. And then the last one is stamp range, which we've seen before, and this uses that range syntax that we've talked about. And in this case, we're just going to have it, leave it, say 1 to n, so that will apply to all pages of the pre-batch output that we're generating. So I mentioned this stamps bottom up here. Now this is a custom box that I'm going to create, and the way that we're going to do that is we'll come up here and we're going to highlight one of these boxes that we already have defined, and we'll just go ahead and copy that and then enter down a line and paste it. Now we need to change the name of this box because we don't want to have two bleed boxes like we have here, and this is going to be the name of what I've supplied down below, which is stamps underscore bottom. And this will make a little more sense as we get a little further down the line here. So we want to take a look at each of these. Oops, I actually did that wrong. Let me back up a step. So the reference in this case is going to be media, and I'll talk about that in a second. Over here for the type is where we actually want to specify stamps bottom. So the sizing for this, we're actually going to change to absolute. And then positioning we'll leave relative. The reference for this box is going to be media. And remember, the media box in our output is the entire piece of content, including the white space that shows up around the fish. The bottom I'm going to leave set to 9. Left we'll leave set to 9. Now the width in this case is not going to be -18. That wouldn't make sense here because we're not using relative for the sizing. We're using absolute. So I need to specify exactly how wide I want this custom box to be, and I have already decided that I would like it to be 700 points wide. Now the height also does not make sense being negative because we are sizing things absolutely. And I know that I want the height of this box to be 36, and we'll see why here in a little bit. So now we have our stamps bottom box. We have a text stamp that's relative to that box, and the last thing that I want to do here is I want to be able, for demonstration purposes, I want you to be able to see this custom box. So remember, the way that we do that is we come down here, and I'm going to grab one of these box outlines that we used previously. We'll copy it, and I'm just going to paste it outside of that commented area. So we're going to change the color of this to black. I'm going to change the box from custom over to stamps bottom. And the weight is a little thick at 3, so I'm going to set it to 1. And again, we'll leave our stamp range at 1 to n. So what we've done here is a couple things. First, we've created a new box, and the purpose for that box, which I haven't really mentioned yet, is going to be to hold or to contain my text stamp and a few other stamps that we're going to create in some later videos. So why would I do that? Why would I create a box to simply put other stamps inside of it? Well, the main reason is that I can position and set all of the sizing and everything for my text stamp, for an image stamp that I'm eventually going to build, and for a barcode stamp that we're going to put in here. I can set them all relative to this box. And what that allows me to do is, if the position of those items needs to change, I can move them as a group simply by moving this box, and instead of having to move each of these individual stamps one at a time. So that's our goal. We'll go ahead and save the layout here. We'll reprocess our content at pre-batch, and we'll see where things are at. Now, I know I haven't talked about all of the attributes here just yet in great detail, but we'll get into that in a little bit. I just want to make sure at this point we have everything set the way we want and that things are going to show up as expected. So we'll come down here after saving, bring back up the UI, we'll reprocess our order at pre-batch, and once this gets done reprocessing, we'll go ahead and view it and make sure things are showing up how we would expect. So again, I think I may have missed the reprocess. It may not have shown. So we'll come down here, go to View, View Pre-Batch, and if we come down here to the bottom, we can see that we have this black box that we created. We can see that we have Infinity Digital, we have the order number showing, and we have this yellow knockout. Now, certainly some things could be cleaned up here. We could make the knockout cover all of the text. We could also make the knockout go clear across the page if there was a reason to do that. But the main point here is that we have our text stamp, we have it positioned relative to this custom box that we built, and as we get the other elements added to this box, we'll be able to position the box exactly where we want it, which will move all of the elements at one time. So we'll go ahead and close this out, make sure that we don't have it left open when we do any future reprocesses. And that's pretty much all I wanted to cover in this video. So we'll go ahead and end this one here, and I will see you in the next one.